the name Martin Scorsese is one held in such high esteem these days, rightly so. He's considered something of a cinematic priest. Certainly, his knowledge of film is so encyclopedic that he'd make a fitting substitute if IMDb crashed and burned. But his talent as a filmmaker is mind-boggling. What gets me is that with other directors, authors and directors with vision and something to say, especially those from the Hollywood New Wave, a generation from which Scorsese did manifest, they might make a few good films, maybe even a timeless classic if they're in that category of 1%, and then they fade away into obscurity. Or you could have a director whose best hits are intercut with flops, and so on and so forth. The thing with Scorsese is, though, he's been working since the late 60s and is still working, and yet has never made a bad film. Okay, maybe Kundun is a bit boring, and Boxcar Bertha was an early favour to Roger Corman, but he's consistently made brilliant pictures, and there's not a single director alive that has reached his heights and stayed there as consistently as he has. And it's made even more amazing that he directs all sorts of different pictures, dabbling in this and that, and creating cinematic marvel in the process. You ask yourself, is there anything this guy can't do? At times it seems like he's not even trying, that it all comes effortlessly. It's just a case of us, as the audience, waiting 2 or 3 years for the next Scorsese film, getting a brilliant movie, and rinse and repeat for decades. Even things like The Key to Reservoir, a 10-minute short he directed where he tried to mimic the style of Alfred Hitchcock. The detail and craft in what was only supposed to be a little comical advertisement was stunning. I've seen all of his feature films, and it's almost unbelievable that one man has that much talent. What's the secret that he has that others like Spielberg, Cimino, Cassavetes, Coppola, De Palma and Friedkin, among others, aren't in on? Who knows? But it's clear he isn't afraid to try new things, unafraid to venture into television and streaming, filming documentaries and using digital when he needs to, and even making one film in 3D. Scorsese once described himself as being an in spite of Hollywood director, as opposed to being a Hollywood director. And when you read up on his battles with studio execs in the 70s, his war with Harvey Weinstein and Gangs of New York, the struggle to get The Irishman made, again, it's simply stunning that one man has a filmography like his. What first attracted me to Scorsese was his gangster films. I binge-watched all the famous ones in the genre, not knowing who directed which, Goodfellas and Casino among them. In and amongst Scarface, Carlito's Way, American Gangster, Donnie Brasco, etc., there was a special quality to them, an energy. The films were long, but they flew by, and the performances from the likes of De Niro and Pesci left massive impacts. But I also noticed the camera work and editing, especially the way the music, narration and the breaking down of the fourth wall was interwoven and intertwined. They were directed with such superiority and confidence. And then I saw another Scorsese film, and then another and then another, and it shocked me how different his films all were, how varied and diverse. Frustrating when you think of his reputation as simply a gangster movie director. Sure, his films have recurring themes like machoism and Catholic guilt, but are we saying having an identity is a bad thing now? How can anyone say that the introspective and haunting Taxi Driver is anything like the noir-esque and fierce Cape Fear, or the sweeping elegance of The Age of Innocence is comparable to the rough and gruff Mean Streets? Hugo, Silence, The Wolf of Wall Street, Raging Bull, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, After Hours, The Aviator, The King of Comedy, The Colour of Money, The Departed, and Shutter Island, among others. That is a stunning collection of films. Even some of his lesser celebrated works like the underrated Bringing Out the Dead are rampant with Scorsese's creative juices practically seeping through the celluloid. Scorsese is one of a kind. He's the last great filmmaker standing against the modern day corporate Hollywood. His achievements will never be replicated, and we're lucky to have had him, and even more lucky that his thirst to make movies has not yet quenched, with more films on the way providing his health provides. He's a living legend, a master of cinema, who helped reinvent American cinema along with his new wave contemporaries. Often the maker of films with unflinching, intense violence and morally questionable protagonists, Scorsese is not at all afraid to challenge his audiences and test their own morality. For over 5 decades, he has entertained and challenged, his films spanning numerous genres and merging them. Even now, over the age of 70, he continues to push boundaries, with his latest film The Irishman due for release this year, utilizing state-of-the-art de-aging CGI effects.